Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Hey, you guys. How's it going?
Welcome back.
Here we are, fellas. We've been pushing it. We haven't all felt well. We've all been going through some things this week, but here we are finally, our post Super Bowl.
You two are going to be on here. I just wanted to stop in and say hi. I got a house full of kids. I got a lot of stuff going on. I am extremely busy in my end right now. I'm looking forward to watching with you guys tonight. I will be commenting to help keep you guys going tonight as well. So have a great episode. Great to see everybody. Have fun tonight.
Before you go, real quick, we were driving through town today, and my daughter looks over and goes, "Hey, there's Ray at the gas station." And I said, "How'd you know it was Ray?" She goes, "The sun's out. You can see his shiny head."
Of course.
I was like, yes, I got to tell him that. All right, man. You have a good night.
Well, hey, have a great episode tonight, guys. I'll be in the comments. It's great
All
seeing
right,
you guys.
awesome.
All right, and then there were two. Holy moly. All right, well, for those of us that are still here, my name's Alex. I was with my other two cohorts. I am left with Fred, and our friend, our friend Ray had to dip out. Well, as he said, dealing with a house full of kids. So good luck to him. And here we are. We got the two banditos on the pod here on Frozen Takes. Fred, how are we doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. Enjoying the heat wave that we're having right now.
For those of you who watched us over the last few weeks, you're like, why is Alex sitting outside with a beanie hat? Because we got a heat wave, y'all. It's 40 degrees. I'm sitting out with a freaking cigar for the first time since October.
Above freezing and loving it.
Loving it. So going back to the cigar real quick, my cigar of choice for tonight is the CAO Flathead 554. It is delicious. I am so happy to be having a cigar right now. I haven't had a cigar since October.
Now, since I am not the cigar connoisseur, what is the selling point for that particular cigar?
Well, it's part of a whole line that's kind of based off of an engine motif. I forget what this exact Vitola is called. It's not the spark plug, but it's something. There's another one that's called like the 550 spark plug. There's another one called a V660. So it's like for a 6-cylinder engine. Right. That one I smoked. I did not like it. It tasted like peanuts, and this was good. It's going to sound weird, but it tastes a little woody, but in a good way. A little bit of baking spice, a little bit of like a slight maple syrup sweetness. It's good.
Nice.
It's good.
Nice.
It's good. It's a nice box press, which this brand is known for. So I'm happy. I'm glad I picked this one out tonight. I was like, do I go between one or the other? I picked this one. I'm glad I did.
Very cool. I'm throwing down with the home blend darkest roast I can find coffee.
All right. Well, sounds like a plan. So on this episode of Frozen Takes, we are finally going to be doing a quick Super Bowl 60 recap. We're going to be talking about how the Seahawks just honestly kind of ran away with it against the Patriots. And I don't know about you, Fred. And we'll dive into this. I said this to you guys throughout the week. It didn't really feel like a Super Bowl.
No,
it just felt
absolutely
like
not.
a game, which is weird.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a Super Bowl. Like, it just didn't have that vibe, and it had nothing to do with the halftime show. It just didn't feel like a Super Bowl.
Right.
It was weird.
I think for me, the aspect that didn't make it feel like a Super Bowl was we had been talking some about how the Seahawks hadn't seen a defense like they were about to face. But the Seahawks also hadn't had any issues really. They hadn't tried to jam it down anyone's throat. They were,
They didn't have
scoring what they needed to score. It was basically a pretty smooth season for them. And on the flip side, New England had to scrape at times throughout the season, but their defense was strong. Now, the one thing that was up in the air for all of us was how May was going to perform in the Super Bowl, and
Except
could
for
he take the pressure?
I freaking called.
And let me tell you, we definitely, I called the low scoring first half.
You did. That you did.
But the thing I was not expecting was for May to look like a rookie first time on the field quarterback. And that was disheartening to see. It was kind of discouraging to see, and that was part of what made it disappointing to me.
Yeah, I agree.
What's your take on May?
I said this to you guys in our last pod, and not that you guys poo-pooed it, but you didn't really you didn't believe me. Throughout the entire postseason, Drake May really he for every touchdown he threw, he would throw a pick. He led all quarterbacks with fumbles. He was just a turnover machine, and we saw that in the Super Bowl. It played out: 2 touchdowns, two picks. I mean, the one that really sealed it was what at first looked like a fumble, but was actually an interception that was taken back to the house by Seattle that really just sealed the game. He just didn't look comfortable, and we were right. It was going to be a defensive game, but only for one half. And
that was the other thing that, how we talked about it being a defensive game, and that's why the first half will be so low scoring. But what I alluded to is the fact that we'll see which team adapts after that first half. And that is absolutely what happened.
Yep.
The doors went wide open when Seattle realized that May was their weak spot, and as long as they kept a ton of pressure, the game was over. And that was absolutely what they did, and they just shut them down.
And I think we've been kind of treated the last 5 Super Bowls with just exceptional quarterback play. Now, granted, in Super Bowl 59, we didn't see that from Patrick Mahomes, but we saw it from Jalen Hurts. Not being a home fan, but I am. We had an exceptional quarterback play in Jalen Hurts in Super Bowl 59. In Super Bowl 58, we had a back-and-forth battle between Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy. I mean, just going back the last 4 or 5 Super Bowls, we've been treated to elite quarterback play. And we really didn't see that in the Super Bowl, in this last Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60, because we didn't have to. And I know that if Ray were on the pod right now, he'd be saying how how Sam Darnold, he's not a good quarterback. He was carried by his defense, blah, 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 blah. But he made the plays when he had to. That said, it really wasn't because of that lack of extremely good quarterback play. It just felt like a Thursday night football game.
Absolutely. And the other thing for me was the fact that, yes, Ray kind of rags on Darnold as not being that great, but he didn't have to be.
No.
Special teams carried the majority of the game. And then what actual work Darnold did was getting the ball downfield enough to where the special teams could take over. And then the second half, once they found the sweet spot to be able to capitalize on May, the defense got them positioned for Darnold to not have to work that hard to be able to get a touchdown. And that definitely made it not the elite play that we're looking for in a Super Bowl. It makes it, like you said, the average kind of a letdown.
Yeah, and now we did kind of talk in the last pod. What record do we think is going to be broken in the Super Bowl this year? I don't think any of us, none of us, predicted that a Super Bowl record would be set by 5 field goals made in a single Super Bowl. None of us saw that coming. So,
Well, I'll say this: I didn't predict that, but you remember I did say that special teams was going to win this football game,
and it did.
and that goes along with everything we looked at this season.
Yep.
A lot of games came down to special teams, and unfortunately for Ray, his team was absolutely lacking in kicking ability, which caused them the playoffs. I mean, that if their team was capable of securing those kicks that they did, we would be looking at a very different Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, no, Ray just he's in the chat. He's saying that this is a Trent Dilfer Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer and Sam Darnold both carried by their defenses. True, but at the same time, you know, it was thrown up. You know, in the you know, early in the game, and obviously Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, and Fred, please do so. There was a comparison made between two quarterbacks going into 2 seasons back-to-back 14-3 and going to the Super Bowl. And only 2. One of them Brady, the other Sam Darnold. So say what you will about Sam Darnold. He's making Vikings fans really regret letting him go. Now, back to the field goal kicking. Yes, 5 field goals in a single Super Bowl. Congratulations there. But to me, that more so points to missed opportunities by the Seattle Seahawks.
Right.
Had they converted those 5 opportunities into field goals, it would have been the blowout that I predicted.
Right. And honestly, it was impressive, the fact that, you know, my first experience of watching soccer was at college level with really good soccer, and watching teams that were extremely dominant, you would see them play what you called boom ball. It was you'd get the ball into the backfield, the goalie would launch it, and then they'd get an attempt on goal, and then it would do the same thing back and forth. And that was exactly what it looked like. You had the offense making it close, but not close enough to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then special teams taking over. And it was really, really difficult to watch, because as a football fan, you don't want to see a soccer game. And what we saw was kickers winning the season. And it makes me wonder, are teams going to look at this year in the offseason? Are they going to look at how their depth is with their kickers? Obviously, Green Bay is going to have to evaluate. I think, you know, there's some other teams that might also benefit from some special teams changes, that if football is going to continue to go the way that it's going, you're not going to have the powerhouse offensive lines that are running the ball down the gut and getting, you know, the yardage all the way to the end zone every time. You're going to have the ability to say, okay, we're at the 30, we're going to take 2 attempts at this field goal. You know, like
right.
That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Now, Ray, thank you for chiming into the chat here. Their kicker was, in his opinion, robbed a Super Bowl MVP. But Kenneth Walker had one hell of a game as well. And he's right. Kenneth Walker did have one hell of a game, and he deserved to be the MVP. He really led that Super Bowl, or led the Seahawks to the Super Bowl win. But again, speaking of missed opportunities, the biggest missed opportunity for the Patriots to really get back in that game was when Drake May, he had a wide open Hunter Henry at the 20, and he just put it 10 yards over his head.
Right.
that he had wide open grass for at least 30 yards. At that point, they were only down, if I remember correctly, maybe 10 points. It wasn't that bad.
Right.
How you completed that game and started to get some momentum, they could have given themselves a chance, but they missed the opportunity.
Well, you could see from the beginning he had the jitters. He was scared to get hit. Like you could almost sense that he came into that game after, in my opinion, after watching film of their offensive line, and it scared him because he knew his offensive line couldn't hold that back.
And speaking of that, not to cut you off, but speaking of that,
you're good.
Will Campbell, their rookie offensive tackle, I believe, offensive tackle. First time in Super Bowl history, speaking of records, that you have two rookie offensive linemen starting on the same team next to each other in a Super Bowl. First time in Super Bowl history. But Will Campbell played awful, allowed 10 quarterback pressures, and he said a few days after the game that he had been dealing with an injury throughout the entire postseason, and in the Super Bowl, he was not 100%, and he said that was on him. But you can't blame the guy. It's the Super Bowl. Everybody's at this point in the season dinged up. You got to go out there and you got to try and win yourself a Super Bowl title.
And the offensive line for the Seahawks, was no slouch.
No.
You know, they haven't had an issue all season. So really, I think it was a very uneven matchup from the start. I definitely think that, you know, New England hadn't faced anyone that their defense really had a hard time with. Yeah. But they didn't need to do all that much offensively because their defense was doing so well. But I think the definitely mismatched offensively, for sure.
Definitely, for sure. And for me, had the Patriots won that game, I honestly think that the Super Bowl MVP, this would have been a first in a very long time. The Super Bowl MVP, or at least the MVP in general for the Patriots, regardless of if they had won, but they had lost, obviously. Their MVP in that game was Christian Gonzalez, their safety. That kid was everywhere.
Yeah.
Again, a deep shot to Rashid Shaheed. Christian Gonzalez got a hand on it. A couple crossing routes that could have gone for touchdowns. Christian Gonzalez got his hand on it. He played his heart out.
You know, watching that, it kind of gave me flashbacks to the old Steelers days, and watching the long-haired Polamalu just cover everything, everywhere, a hand on everyone, and that's what it definitely, you know, was a flashback of that for me.
Yeah. So I feel like we covered it. Again, this wasn't really, it didn't have a Super Bowl feel. It didn't have all the craziness that we expect from a Super Bowl.
Right.
In a way, it was kind of like Super Bowl 59, but different. And even though it was a lower scoring Super Bowl, even like the Super Bowl, the last time the Patriots and Rams faced off, it was a 10-3 ball game, but that was exciting because every play could have been the game winner. But this one, it really wasn't. So I don't feel like there was a whole lot to draw from this other than the Seahawks, just their defense came prepared. Sam Darnold did what he had to do. Hand the ball off to Kenneth Walker, you'll win the game.
Right. Yeah, and definitely a mismatched offensive line. For sure.
For sure. So I think Ray just chimed in the chat. Ray saying obviously he loves defense, so he loves on Ray.
Yeah, I agree with that, Ray. And I did also, the one thing I did enjoy was the fact that I enjoyed watching the special teams do what two teams with a good special team setup can do. You know, like I said, all season long, there's been, you know, games won or lost by special teams, and this was no different.
This is no different. So it honestly feels, and I've been thinking about this pretty much all week, and I know I alluded to it in our last pod. In a way, it feels like forever ago that we were making our first podcast. We were talking about the season coming up, and we were talking about preseason. It feels like forever ago, but in a way, it just feels like yesterday. Like it just happened.
Yep,
You know, so
absolutely.
here we are. We're now in the off season. A lot of things are going to shake out. Once there's something, that crazy goes down, we'll let you guys know.
Now,
The next thing,
I wanted to point out something going on in the off season with the Giants right now, because there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, and this is the first time that I've heard of, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but 3 veteran players are renegotiating their contracts to be able to remain with the Giants and be able to keep the system that they have right now, which is that's crazy to me. That's confidence in a system, that's confidence in a roster that I haven't seen in a team in a long time. And to come into the season looking that way is brilliant. That's
yeah,
something that us as Giants fans are not used to. Not at
yeah,
all.
it's good that you mentioned that, because this is something I've been thinking about all week. Obviously, from an Eagles fan perspective, but like the Giants, I really do think, as much as I don't want to say it, I think the Giants are going to kind of be like not that I'm saying that it's going to be on the same level, but I think they're going to be a surprise team next year. They're going to be a team that we don't see coming, that's going to surprise a lot of people, that could go 10-7, 11-6, and squeak into the playoffs and make some noise. You never know. They could go from worst in the division to first. You never know. The
Yeah,
NFC East flux.
Ray, Tom Brady, he did do that with Belichick in order to make some room and
Yep.
Bring in more talent. But I've never seen it where 3 players are willing to renegotiate in order to keep the system the way it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just speaks to the kind of coach that Jim Harbaugh is. Players want to play for him. But again, this NFC East is going to be in flux. The Giants, they're looking to get better. The Commanders, they are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Cowboys, they're going to be facing some pretty crazy free agency issues. They're already over the cap, so they have to figure out how to get back into cap compliance. And the Eagles are nothing but drama right now. Like, we hear so many conflicting stories out of Philadelphia. The NFC East is going to be a crazy year. I really don't think the Eagles, as much as I wanted, and I could be wrong, but if I had to make a bet right now, I don't see the Eagles repeating as NFC East champs. I think they could be number 2. I don't see them being number 1, but we'll see. But this is, again, the NFL offseason. This is now when things kind of go dark. We're not going to really see a whole lot until the NFL Combine here next month. After that, it's going to be the draft, and then after that, free agency. So we're going to see some things pick up, but for right now, things are quiet. And we're just going to transition over to some other sports, and we'll obviously discuss those in other pods. Now, one big sporting event across the world that we have to talk about are the Olympics.
Yes.
The Olympics, I love the Olympics. Now, I have not watched the Olympics nearly as closely as I probably should be, but the Olympics are always super fun. There's always interesting things happening, and there are 3 things that we wanted to talk about. The first one that I wanted to talk about was Lindsey Vonn. She is a downhill skier for the United States. She went on a run this past week on the 8th. She had, for those of you that don't know Lindsey Vonn, and I'm not even speaking as an authority, I'm just speaking from what I know. Lindsey Vonn is one of the United States' best downhill skiers. She was favored to at least, place and get on the podium, if not get the gold for the United States. She had a wicked accident going downhill. It was only a few seconds into her run. She broke multiple bones. Before we got on, Fred did confirm she had to have multiple surgeries. As a matter of fact, she had to have 4 surgeries to repair all of the damage. And Fred, before we get into the surgeries and her condition now, downhill skiing is one of the fastest and one of the most dangerous Olympic sports, other than like luge and skeleton and bobsled. These people are going 80, 90 miles an hour, and they have to make split-second decisions that could result in either a second shade here or there, or like we saw with Lindsey Vonn, absolute disaster.
Right, and the conditions play a huge role in downhill skiing. Though you hope that there's consistency as you slalom down the hill, there's obviously a vast difference as the day goes on. There's a vast difference in how the hill rides, and you never know. And so to have such an elite skier have an incident like that is, it's unfortunate, and it's sad for someone to have worked that hard to get there to go through something like that. But again, it's a dangerous sport, and the risks involved. Many people put their neck on the line over and over again, not just in the Olympics, but training for 4 years to get there. And to have her experience such a detrimental injury, the report said that she's finished her 4th surgery. She talked with the media, and she's in good spirits. She's going to be returning to the U.S., and best of luck to her and her family as she recovers, and hopefully is able to in the future recover and get back to the sport she loves. So, and thank you to her also for representing the United States.
Yes,
there's many elite athletes that, for whatever reason, they don't choose to participate and represent the U.S. And while I respect the decision, I still feel that my hat's off to those who choose to. So, Lindsay, best of luck to you.
Yep, absolutely. And for those of you that didn't see it, I'm not saying, I mean, it's not like gruesome, or, I mean, it can be. But if you haven't seen Lindsey Vohn's accident, just the fact that she's even alive is a miracle. That poor girl took a hit. The first thing that I thought whenever she fell and she was going down the hill was, oh my God, I hope she didn't literally break her head. But she's, as Fred said, she's in good spirits. She's out of the hospital. She'll be back stateside here soon. So from everybody here on Frozen Takes, we wish her and her family all the best. Now, Ray did make a good point. She did tear her ACL before her last run. And it was going to be her last Olympic go. So, unfortunately, this is not what you want to see. But again, like we discussed with Will Campbell in the Super Bowl, he wasn't 100%. This is the biggest stage.
Yeah,
and
you put your heart on the line.
Yeah.
That's it. Win, lose, whatever the outcome, they're literally going for gold, So, again, best of luck to her and her recovery, and thank you for representing the U.S.
Absolutely. Now, go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, Ray also alluded to something that we were going to talk about as well. The Olympic medal count. We are 3 medals behind. The Norway is leading with a total of 20. Italy has 18, and we are at 17. We are trailed by Australia, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. What's crazy to me is with it being the Winter Olympics, some of the countries that you would think would be, right up near the top, Netherlands, Switzerland, Sweden, they're all trailing us pretty significantly. Now, obviously, there's a lot of Olympics left to go, and a lot of things can change, but the medal count, while close, we have only earned half of the gold medals that Norway has. Norway is definitely showing up and showing some pride there this year. Though it's easy to say we need to step up our game, it would be I would be remiss to say the best of the best are there, and I think it would be awesome to see some more gold medals get handed out to the U.S. as the Olympics continue.
For sure. And for those of you that are wondering why you can hear me but not see me, I am fighting my cigar at the moment, so I apologize.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
But one thing that that Ray mentioned, and we're going to touch on it now, The NHL is on the Olympic break, so we're not seeing any NHL action right now, but we are seeing hockey action. And honestly, we saw a little bit of a surprise. Well, maybe not a surprise, but a huge blowout here. Norway and Italy, or no, it wasn't Norway and Italy. It was
Finland.
Switzerland, Finland and Italy. Sorry,
Finland and Italy.
it was Finland and Italy. Gosh, I can't talk.
There we go.
There we go. Went up in hockey, and Finland took it to the Italians. The Italian in me feels a little bit of national disappointment. Finland took it to Italy and just crushed them. 11 goals to 0. You don't see that kind of score in hockey, and in the Olympics much else. I mean, that's just wow.
Yeah, I mean that is a very dominant offense. That's and for 11 points, you're doing a very fast-paced game, and there is no letting up, no downtime. You're going straight to the net every time.
Yeah. Yeah, that game, I mean, I didn't get all the highlights. I'm sure Ray did, but to get 11 goals, that means your blue line, your defense is just not up to par. And then obviously your goalkeeping is just, it's Swiss cheese.
Right. Now, also, Ray brought up the fact that Brazil, shout out to Brazil, they won their first gold in winter sports, first ever for a South American country, which that's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. That's generally awesome. You always see these kind of feel good stories in the Olympics. We're a country that, obviously we all know the Jamaican bobsled team that came out of nowhere. Yep. But you always like to see these kind of stories in the Olympics of countries that, they're the scrappy ones. They're coming out there. They have nothing to lose, everything to gain. They come out and they perform. Obviously, those of us here, in the United States, we're pulling for our statesmen, but you always like to see other countries. This is the one kind of international event where everybody can come together, loving sports. Even if you don't understand the sport, you can enjoy the sport and root for your nation, root for your statesmen, root for your fellow compatriots, but still have a good time and still get a good feel-good story.
Yep. So shout out to Lucas Pinheiro Brahafan. So congrats there to Brazil. Alpine skiing is not easy. The slalom competition is very tight, and to see him get gold, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's representing.
Literally, that's representing. Now, let's touch on something that it's a little bit out of the blue, a little bit out of left field. But for Fred and I, it touches a little bit closer to home. Both of our mothers, we were discussing before we
I see what you did there. A little bit out of the blue, the big blue.
Yeah, a little left field. Both of our moms every weekend would watch figure skating. And I have this very vivid memories of my mom watching figure skating. I didn't know what I was watching, but I knew that my mom loved it. Fred, your mom, same thing, watching figure skating. In men's figure skating, we saw maybe not a first, but a very rare occasion. And Fred, fact check me here if I'm wrong. Ray, I'm sure you will. We did, I believe he was Russian, name escapes me. We saw a very rare men's backflip in the Olympics, and it was landed. Not only is that just impressive physically, just in general, but also in figure skating. These guys, they're putting immense pressure on their bodies and on their skates. Their skates are not like hockey skates. When you think of a hockey skate, it's thicker. It's about this thick, their skate. For figure skaters, it's even thinner. It's more precise. It's more of a blade than even a hockey skate. So to be able to do that backflip, land it, maintain your balance, and continue to skate out of it, it's hard to do. It's rare to see, which is why I think, Fred, there's only been 3 in Olympic history.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is it was banned. So that's why it wasn't attempted, wasn't, really done that much. The 3 that actually did it, there was Terry Kubica, attempted it in 76, and that's when it was deemed too dangerous. Then Surrey Bon Alley, he landed an illegal one-footed backflip in 98, and now the ban was lifted. So Ilian Malinin is the one who landed it for this 2026 Olympics. Pretty amazing, to be able to do that and land it one-footed. I've personally seen Scott Hamilton land two-footed whenever I went to Madison Square Garden as a kid, and watched figure skating with my mom, and it's awesome to be able to see those kinds of things. Not easy to do, not easy to land, and to see someone do it in not only a flawless performance, but a flawless performance in the Olympics. This isn't just professional figure skating where you're trying to get the crowd to say ooh and ah. You're trying to impress judges and have an absolutely perfect performance. One flaw, one slip, one bobble, and you lose points, and you cost your team the medal. So to have him do that and have the confidence to land it is absolutely impressive.
It really is. I mean, and pardon my language, I don't know if I'm going to get doxxed for this or not, but to have the balls.
No, absolutely. I agree.
Like, this dude has to have some massive balls on him, and to be able to just want to do it.
Right. And see, the other thing too is the ability to not only successfully land a backflip, but you have to have practiced that and practiced that and practiced that. Your center of gravity has to be perfect on that skate for you to be able to land and not bobble. I've seen the backflips where traditionally the way Scott Hamilton would do it, he would do a backflip and then it would almost immediately go to a break slide stop. So he wasn't trying to maintain insane balance afterwards. It was he didn't put that pressure on himself. Exactly. But to do it one-footed is insane. To do it one-footed and then have that be a continuous motion as part of your routine is absolutely crazy.
While moving backwards.
Exactly.
It's just mind-boggling. That's why the Olympics, they're just, you always see something incredible. Yes. I'm sure we're going to see more incredible feats and more incredible stories coming out of the Olympics, out of Milan. I know for me, when I was a kid, I always liked watching luge and skeleton and how fast those guys go, but you don't see those dudes doing backflips.
Yeah. And as Ray alluded to, he did wind up messing up his last run and dropped in the standings from first to eighth. But still, you can't take away that record, that performance. You just can't. Hats off to him for that.
And you're going to see it every single highlight, every single Olympic commercial.
Absolutely.
You see it.
And that's one thing that I think there's many that don't really see at the time the value of these things until we're watching highlights 10 years from now, or even we've been around the block long enough to see the greats develop, the greats kind of fall away, and then you see them in an interview 10 or 15 years later and look at them and think there's no way they did that. And watching Lawrence Taylor talk about the being a giant, he's always been a giant, he always will be a giant, and the difficulties that he's facing in his health right now, to see where he was and watch the highlights of him being completely dominant and the man that he is now, still in support, still showing up to every game, still, you know, being there for the team that he loves, that gave him so much, but knowing that he's a fraction of the athlete that he used to be. You know, that it's a long road to see, but knowing that those highlights exist, this is one man that, though it was banned, he still successfully did it. And you know, he's never gonna walk away and, you know, be around an ice rink again without having somebody say, "You're the one. You're the one who did that." Right.
Or that did the backflip.
Right.
So we're going to get more stories out of the Olympics. We're going to keep our eye out there in Milan, see what goes down. But, you know, obviously Snoop's out there, so I'm sure he's going to give us some highlight reel funny. So, you know, we'll keep out on Snoop.
Right.
So we do have an eye going towards spring and spring training baseball.
Yes.
There's something coming. Now, I'm not a baseball fan, as I have said multiple times, but I do enjoy kind of seeing the lead up. And in spring training baseball, you always see a couple names or a couple teams kind of catch your eye. Fred, you're the resident baseball expert. What are you seeing potentially going to be happening here in spring training here in a couple months, and a few things that we should keep our eye on?
Well, here's the thing that's interesting to me. Just like it's kind of the same feeling when you're in high school and you're going through tryouts. You know, you were on the team last year, but you still need to prove yourself worthy of the spot. And so as you come out in spring training, yes, you haven't had, you know, a few months to show anything. But when you step out on that field, you have eyes on you from the second you arrive. And to know that not only, yes, you got guys that are going to be starters no matter what, you get that. But you also can't take anything away from the guys that are also invited to spring training that the team wants to look at. There's a few guys in the farm system for the Yankees right now that there's potential to be breakouts that, you know, no one's heard of, but they're guys that, you know, have maybe been living in the farm system a little bit, and they're fighting for their spot. There's a couple pitching spots open in our rotation that there's some young guys that could fill a spot. The exciting thing for a lot of fans is that Rondon just came back with an update. His recovery is going really well. And then also the re-sign of Goldschmidt, the re-sign of Rice. There's also some talks about freeing up Rice to be able to simply play right field. Aaron Judge is now, his arm is not bothering him in the preseason. He's been kind of nursing that up. You know, the MLB is no different than the NFL. They have ways to, you know, stem cell it up in the off season to make sure that those weak joints, those weak, you know, weak hips or whatever it is, you know, can last another season. So Aaron Judge is now he's pretty solid going to be playing right field rather than DH. So as far as the Yankees are concerned, there is a ton of solidity coming back, but there's also very, very viable options for filling the few gaps and rounding out our bullpen, including, like I said, there's a guy in Double-A right now that was invited to spring training that he's a lefty. He started out kind of rough in his career with some injuries, but he's proven himself. last season he had 22 starts, and he ended with a 1.94 ERA, and just he's definitely proven why the Yankees picked him up in the first place. So now
Fred,
he's in
if
the bid for a spot on the rotation now. So it would be really cool to see, another lefty starter in the mix for the Yankees.
So, Fred, if I may ask, obviously, like football, there's always that one club that kind of takes you by surprise. Now, touching on Philadelphia, just because I know the city of Philadelphia, just like the Eagles, the Phillies are kind of in flux. They're in this weird spot of having a lot of names, but not a lot of production. So you don't know what's going to come out of Philly. But putting that aside, just like in the NFL, there's always one or two clubs that kind of comes out of nowhere and just takes you by surprise. We saw it with the Brewers last year, almost getting to the World, almost capturing a World Series themselves. They fell away. But what do you think, just looking across the MLB, who do you think that if you had to pick one team, if I had to put out my cigar on your arm and make it hurt, what is one team, one club that you would point to and say, you know what, watch out for these guys?
Well, I think there's been so many moves that have been happening since the postseason started. But I think there's some key players that kind of were just sort of lost in the mix that I think might have a bigger hit this year. One, the Reds, their pitching staff, they kind of took a big hit because of the difficulties they had with their offense this year. But their pitching was pretty solid. Now they have a couple guys coming back. One that's coming back from an injury that's their ace, that is just, he's young, he's dominant, and if he winds up staying in Cincinnati, they have a good outlook. The other team to watch is Cleveland, because Cleveland had two of their star players that post All-Star break wound up being booted out for the whole betting scandal stuff. Those spots weren't filled permanently at that point. So Cleveland had the most dominant closer, or one of the most dominant closers in baseball at that point. And then the catcher was also in on the whole ordeal. So whenever a team changes a catcher and one of their ace pitchers, there's a dynamic on the field between a pitcher and catcher, and
a quarterback relationship.
Right. So that dynamic in Cleveland has a huge opportunity to be fixed and to have some time to grow that might give them an edge. They were on course to be one of the top teams in their division before, all the scandal stuff, however it panned out, happened. But I also see, there's a lot of teams that are represented in what we were going to talk about too, the World Baseball Classic. The exciting thing with the World Baseball Classic is we essentially have a roster that is, in my opinion, you're talking not only the best players in baseball, but you're talking home run hitters like we haven't seen. It's very impressive, and there's really no holes that could be pointed to. A few names to throw out. Let me pull out the if I can. I'm going to try and pull up the lineup.
And we're talking the American team, yes.
Yes.
So while Fred's looking up the American roster, if I may circle back, from what I gathered, Fred, in regards to my last question, you're thinking like Cincinnati and Cleveland are two, if you had to pick, are two teams to kind of keep an eye on in this upcoming MLB season.
Right. And more so because of the changes that are happening in the offseason, it has the potential for kind of, I would say, a big bang for their buck. We'll put it that way.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot to look at there. Yeah, I definitely think, that's a huge deal. To throw out the starting roster for the World Baseball Classic for the U.S., we have Cal Riley, absolute home run powerhouse, hitting powerhouse.
Young.
We have Schwarber as DH from Philly. We have Harper from Philly playing first base. We have Henderson from the Orioles. We have Witt Jr. from Kansas City. We have Bregman from Boston. We have Carroll in left field. And we have Buxton in center field. Absolute powerhouses from the start to finish. We have a bench that's just as good. And then you're looking at pitching staff, which includes Kershaw. It includes Bednar. It includes Whitlock, McLean, all guys that were powerhouses all season long. The three starting pitchers, and that was just the bullpen. The starting pitchers, you have access to Paul Skeens, Skubal, Webb, Ryan, and Boyd. That is, in my opinion, this year's World Baseball Classic has the makings of being what I alluded to earlier as my memories of the dream team for basketball. The U.S. dominance there was unbelievable, unmatched, and has never been seen since. I really think that the people who are present for the World Baseball Classic right now are some of the most dominant in their position for what we've seen in baseball, all in one amazing lump.
And like we allude to with football, though, any given Sunday, it's going to be any given game, any given matchup in the Baseball Classic. Now, outside looking in, casual observers think this could be an American national team. The Japanese always field really good players. I mean,
right.
Not a lot of Americans know how popular baseball is in Japan. Now, you may not always see Japanese national players coming over and playing in the MLB, but baseball in Japan is highly competitive. One could almost argue it's almost more intense there, or as intense there as it is here in the States. So they always field really good teams and guys that don't maybe always get a lot of national attention here in the States because they aren't playing in the MLB, but they always field solid teams. So casually looking in, you're thinking maybe this could be an American and Japanese, two-horse race, but any given matchup, any given day.
And I mean, you also can't write off. You got Puerto Rico, Cuba, you have Brazil, you have Japan, there's Dominican Republic, you have Venezuela, Nicaragua. These aren't countries that haven't seen their way around a ballpark, and there's a lot of recruitment that comes from those countries for the MLB. Why? Because the MLB stage is bigger and more valuable financially, but when you look at the talent pool they're pulling from, you see, guys that get drafted from Cuba, guys that get drafted from the Dominican Republic. And some of these guys are getting drafted at 16, 17 years old and dominant in their sport in their home country before ever coming here and dominating in the MLB. So when you have guys that are that dominant and capable of coming and being the best of the best in the MLB, you have to look at what is their competition where they are that they got that good.
And who we know.
Exactly. So I love being able to see some of the World Baseball Classic, regardless of of the outcome. Same way with the Olympics. You just want to see great baseball. You want to see every competitor in the Olympics perform well. But you kind of have that home team feel where, absolutely, I want to see Skeens strike out every guy that he can possibly come up against. And I'm not a Pittsburgh fan, but I'm a baseball fan. So to see the guys come together, just like I said before, like the dream team, you have so many amazing athletes that are all competing for the chance to be able to say that they're the best in the world. And that hats off to them for achieving, even making the team, let alone being able to compete and represent the U.S. on such an elite level.
Absolutely. And speaking of playing on an elite level, another transition, our last topic that we wanted to touch on, a little bit closer to home, we finally get a hockey matchup at Beaver Stadium.
Absolutely.
Valley. That stadium, now granted, it is under construction. It's getting renovations for a couple seasons out. But that stadium was just about as packed for a hockey game, a college hockey game, as it is for a college football game.
Absolutely. The vibe in that stadium, it was unbelievable to see how not only the turnout, not only
it was that day. It was frigid.
Yeah, it was not. The weather was not on anyone's side. It was the sheer capability of it being the first time that Penn State offered Beaver Stadium to their hockey team to be able to play out in open air and play hockey the way it was intended. Not enclosed in an arena. You're out there in the sun with the cold and the wind and the ice and the fans just going crazy. Like it, to be able to see it, you could feel the intensity. I can't imagine what it was like being there, knowing it was the first time that those hockey players and the hockey fans that were present and the opposing hockey team has ever had the Penn State experience, the Beaver Stadium experience for that level of hockey.
And it just makes me think how much more popular hockey is becoming here in the United States. Even 10, 15 years ago, hockey was kind of this niche sport where, kind of weirdos and the IPA drinkers of the sports world, that was their sport. But now hockey is becoming more and more mainstream. And like you said, it's just becoming more evident because now Penn State is saying, hey, take on Beaver Stadium, take over Beaver Stadium, see what you can do. And the Penn State men's team did not disappoint. They gave the crowd their money's worth.
Okay, so I just pulled it up here. 74,575 fans were present. And it
looked more.
Absolutely. And part of the difficulty there, like you said, was the construction going on at the stadium. So part of the stadium is not usable right now. But despite the sub-zero temperatures, the sold out stadium was absolutely impressive. And then to switch gears from that, Penn State leading the charge in making the sports that are less attended and less in the public eye, so to speak, to break those sports out into mainstream with the most possible viewers, the largest audience allowable by the venue. We saw that again with Penn State wrestling. Their most recent wrestling tournament they had in the Bryce Jordan Center, and anyone who hasn't seen it, look it up on YouTube. Watch.
It's not a big arena.
No, but packing out the Bryce Jordan Center for a wrestling tournament
is hard work.
Absolutely. What you normally end up having with a wrestling tournament is you have some wrestling fans, but a lot of the stadium is filled with people who came with their team. So you have the team, you have their entourage, you have guys from every weight class, you have the coaching staffs, and depending on how many teams attend the tournament, you have the ability to have the appearance of a crowd without really having an audience. And here, Penn State advertised, they made it available to where it became an audience event. And even the way it was presented, watch the clips, it was presented like a WWE event. Everything from the cheerleaders, the music, they took that venue and used everything they could to make it an audience-worthy wrestling tournament that, I think should be every sport. I think those venues are there for a reason. Let's take some of these sports that might be lesser attended or might be lesser seen and allow people to enjoy the sports they enjoy, but then allow others to be introduced to sports that they may have not ever been really that into or follow all that much. I had the ability to, when I went to college, I had the ability to meet some very elite wrestlers. The Hayeswinkle family found their home in Pensacola, Florida, and one of the guys that I became friends with, not only was his dad the wrestling coach, but also his uncle was a wrestling coach. Both his dad and his uncle were wrestlers for the world team for 10 years. They were both Olympic medalists. They had been in 2 Olympics together. Then Sam Hayeswinkle goes on to win the Olympic trials in 2012. He was the head wrestling coach for Oklahoma City University. And to see that elite level of wrestling as a college student was eye-opening. To see guys that, for generations had invested in world-class wrestling, nothing beats it. And to watch them grapple, to watch them, go head-to-head on a mat with honestly the most original sport of mankind, and to break that down, and then to learn about the sport, to watch how points are earned, to watch how it's just as valuable to be able to escape as it is to take somebody down. All of those aspects of the sport I never would have fell in love with without having seen it for myself, and without having seen such elite play be presented to me without ever really being interested in it before that. So to see Penn State make that available is just, I think that's top notch, and hats off to Penn State. hats
Absolutely.
off to their sports.
Their athletic department.
Yeah. The athletic department should absolutely receive accolades for this. And I think this should be an example for the rest of college sports, because I think there is a duty that we have to the athletes, not just from a financial standpoint. That's the last thing on my mind. These athletes have been working, and they may have, earned scholarships to go to college from these skills that they've developed over their whole life. And they should be able to get more than the pat on the back from a coach who was the only one there to witness them earning that title, or more than just the headline in a newspaper that says, hey, so and so on a list of 5 other people helped win the Penn State wrestling match.
Right.
Those names should become household names. And I also think that all of those secondary sports, as they've been traditionally, all those secondary sports should have a following. You should see 5, 6, 7-year-old kids wearing a shirt that has some wrestler's name on it. It doesn't have to be just football or baseball or hockey. I think college has the ability to open those doors for people and to make sports as a whole accessible and valuable to everyone.
Exactly. And speaking of college, and as we begin to wrap up, speaking of college, our buddy Ray, he's going back to college. So congratulations. Yes. He's going for early or early education. He is going to be working very hard. So he may not be able to join us every time on the pod. But for those of you that have followed us and know Ray, Ray is a hard worker. He's put a lot of people before himself, and this is one time where he's putting himself first to better himself. He's joined speaking of teams, he has joined a great team in the Mifflin County School District that has really kind of invested in him and given him an opportunity to find a love that he never knew he had, and a passion that he never knew he had. So our hats off, figuratively and literally, to our buddy Ray for investing in himself and in his education. We wish Ray all the best with pursuing his degree. And for those of you that think you can't do it, look to our buddy Ray. If he can, I don't mean this to belittle Ray. If he can do it, anybody, literally anybody can do it. Take that chance. Bet on yourself. Invest in yourself, whether it's going to school, starting a business, pushing yourself harder at work or in your personal life, whatever it is. Never forget to invest in yourself. So our hats off to our buddy Ray. He may not be joining us all the time, but our hats off to our buddy Ray, and we wish him all the best in his educational endeavor.
I agree 100%. And to second that, I think we need to get back to the times when kids were able to value and invest in sports and had the support of their family to do that. I think there's a lot of kids now that, whether it's a device, whether it's, whatever it is now, when we were kids, not allowed to come back inside the house until we were called to come back inside the house. I remember hours upon hours throwing a baseball against the back of my shed. Now, that was my start as, developing as a pitcher and developing in baseball. Was just the hours that I had to be outside caused me to work and work and work to get better at the sport that I loved. And I think there's a lot to be said for young kids being encouraged and being exposed to sporting events. Get them outside. Take them to a wrestling match at the Bryce Jordan Center. Take them to a hockey game. It doesn't matter if you're a fan. If you go to a sporting event, there's a feeling at a sporting event. If you've never gone to a hockey game, the first one I got to experience made me enjoy a sport I didn't even know what was going on. But the first time there was a guy that got slammed on the glass right in front of me, I was in. Like I was loving it. And the same goes for wrestling, watching guys that had never wrestled before get thrown around the mat by this guy in his 50s that you don't know why he's capable of doing that. And then I had the joy of being able to work with Jim Hazewinkle for a summer and spending every day with him and hearing the stories and seeing the history behind why it didn't matter if we were trimming a palm tree or digging a hole or what it was we were doing. He was invested, and he, from start to finish, that task needed to be completed. And that dedication from a sport that spread throughout his whole life, then spread to Sam, and Sam is able to invest in other students and help them become the men and athletes that they can be. So again, alluding back to our childhoods, being able to have the opportunity and being introduced to sports, being introduced to things that we maybe never had any interest in. If it weren't for my mom, I wouldn't know anything about figure skating, and I'm sure same for you. But now we're capable of valuing and tipping our hats to an elite move that, wouldn't even bat an eye for other people. Well, they may not even hear about, but we get to talk about it.
So, and that's just the wonderful, wonderful world of sports. So,
absolutely.
And I think with that, this was a good pod, Fred.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed it.
So for everybody that's watched us on this episode, everybody that's joined us on this episode, thank you for joining us and watching, hearing us talk sports. We love it. Ray will be back with us, and he'll be chatting sports with us. But most of all, please, if you enjoyed this, leave a comment down below to kind of piggyback off of what Fred said. Tell us about one moment where you went off to a sport and you just fell in love with it and how that impacted your life. Leave that comment down below. Tell us that moment in your life. I'm looking forward to seeing those comments.
We'd love to see that.
Most importantly, please not only comment, but like and subscribe, because that is what continues to fuel us to bring you guys more sports-related content. Just because the NFL season isn't over doesn't mean the sports world is going in the dark and going to sleep. There's more sports to talk about. We'll be there to talk about it. Now, if you enjoy hearing us talk sports, see all of our past videos. They're out there in the ether there for you to watch. But as it is, Fred, it was a pleasure. It was great talking sports with you tonight. Another fun night. But for all you guys out there, thank you for watching us this time and always. And until next time, this is Frozen Takes.
Have a good one, everyone.